Hello, aspirants. Welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here, Harpreet Singh, with the daily analysis of the Hindu from 11th of October 2024. This is basically a QR code where you can get all the board work that is being done over here in this Telegram account. You can subscribe to that through the QR code or the name that has been mentioned over here. So what all topics do we have for today's discussion? First, the middle income trap. Second, the ASEAN India summit. That what is the outcome? We have discussed already with respect to ASEAN the previous day. So what all outcomes have been there? We'll be discussing today. The concept or the horseshoe cap that has been in the news for quite some time. Again, an article has been there in the Hindu. Then the editorial dealing with court and litigations and the aspect of scheduling of the cases, a very important dimension. Next, we have news and shots and the MCQs for your preliminary examination. Let's begin. Okay, so the article that is present in today's newspaper of The Hindu is mentioning the concept, can India escape the middle income trap? Now see, we need to know certain details with respect to what this concept is, then basically classification, what do you mean by the middle income trap? And then respect to what India is facing or the issues that India is facing, basically, we'll be discussing that. See, firstly, the World Development Report 2024 by World Bank. So again, you're learning the report name also, and that is by World Bank, mentions the term middle income trap. Now, please do not get confused that it is not for the first time that the World Bank has used this term of middle income. Please note, World Bank introduced this term in 2007. So this can also be asked as a statement that the World Bank introduced this statement in, let us say, 2024. No, or they can change the year. It is basically 2007, and it is still mentioned in the 2024, this year's World Development Report by World Bank. Now let us see, what do you mean by the word middle income trap? Now please understand, it is a scenario where country's economy is unable to transition to higher per capita income level. That means there is a certain bracket within which the per capita income of a country is stuck, and it is not going to the level of the higher income or the higher per capita income level. We'll be seeing a chart also, don't worry. Just now please understand. That means the country's income is unable to cross that barrier to go to that higher per capita income levels, like for example, the United States. Lower income countries often tend to transition faster to middle income levels. That means when you see the countries which have lower income, we'll be seeing what lower income and middle income and upper income means. We'll see that. But before that, please understand, when a country is in lower income levels, obviously certain or some reforms that take place, so they can at a faster rate move towards the middle income group. But from middle income group to going to the higher is one, that is a major barrier. That is why most of the countries are basically stuck in that middle income. Because they are stuck, that is why it is known as a middle income trap. Now see, lower income countries often tend to transition to the middle income levels driven by, let us say, low wages, cheap labor, basic technology. And these small reforms also help them to move towards the middle income level. Now, few countries manage to achieve the high income levels. That means major reforms need to be taken if one country needs to move to the higher income levels. Because see, it not only involves reform at the level of population, it also involves structural and functional reforms for a country overall to reach the higher income, the higher per capita income levels. Please understand, the Latin American countries and the Middle Eastern countries suffered from the middle income trap for at least 4 to 5 decades. So imagine from 40 to 50 years, the Latin American countries and the Middle Eastern countries are stuck in this middle income bracket. Now, this is something concerning with India also, because World Bank opens that there's a possibility that India might also be stuck in this particular middle income trap. Now, please understand, see this. Every year, please understand, there is a little bit variation of what lower income, middle income, and higher income is. Now, please understand, there are certain countries are going to be in the lower income. That means those for, let us assume for this year, 2024 to 25, having the per capita income of less than $1145 US dollars. Lower middle income would be 1146 to 4515 dollars. Upper mid will be 4516 to 14,500 and higher income is greater than $14,500 per capita. Now, if you see this, you'll be realizing that India's per capita income is close to $2,390 per annum, but that is per capita per annum. Now, this is since 2007 when India moved from lower income to the lower middle income. In 2007, India moved from lower income to lower middle income. Since 2007 till now 2024, India's already stuck over here and still very far away from even reaching the upper middle income, right? Because right now it is 4,515, close to twice the per capita income that we are talking right now. So what is going on? Now, please understand this middle income group, that means the lower and the upper middle group basically comprises the middle income group. That means we can say middle income group will range from 1,146 to $14,005 per capita, right? Now, 75% of the global population is comprised in this group, and it comprises of 40% of the global GDP. The majority of the countries lie over here. The problem that happens is that, like India is over here. For India to reach this level is itself a mammoth task. Some reports say that minimum of 75 years it will take for India to reach that level. But again, those are based on various assumptions that a lot of, let us say, manufacturing sector will increase, service sector will increase, fertility rate will decrease, all those things are there. But if those dynamics change, automatically the extrapolation changes. Now, just imagine that India is still stuck here. So this is the trap where, because the thing is, we realize that population is rising, though the rate of population growth is going down. But overall, one basis percentage change also increases the population, because India's already population is close to 140 crore. Along with it, we realize that lack of skills, we realize lack of employment, we realize because of that, the earnings have been decreasing to a great extent. What happens is still stuck over here. And if we continue over here, then what happens is in a long term, the aspirations to reach the goal of higher income will again suffer, because India aims to be a developed nation by 2047. So if the per capita income is in this range, that is going to stigmatize that target. That is what is creating an issue. Now, please move ahead. Let's see. This is again a map representing of all the countries. Now, understand, if I talk about higher income groups, see, do you realize that just to see what are the higher income countries? Like, for example, over here we see higher income includes United States, it's Canada, Greenland, Chile, Australia, even Saudi Arabia, automatically the Western European nations over here, UK, France and all these countries, again, New Zealand, South Korea. So these countries are the higher income countries. Now we realize we call them also in a way developed countries also. So remember, there's a correlation between the concept of moving out of the middle income group and development or a developed country. Our aim is to reach the status of a developed country by 2047, but projections are there, it will take at least 75 years for us to move or come close to even the higher income bracket per capita. So that is why is the problematic situation that is arising. Now we are over where? The lower middle income group, along with Pakistan, even Myanmar, Bangladesh and these countries, and majority of the African countries. Now this is a point of concern, right? Now understand, what are the constraints for India or problems which we see? See, there is income inequality in India. It is very clear. If you realize that 1% population in India basically owns 42 to 43% of the wealth in India. 1% population owning 42 to 43% wealth. That means other majority of the population is contributing very less. And that is where the problem lies. Next, balancing growth and inflation. We realize that if supposingly you keep your money in the banks, let us say earlier when the interest rates were high, and even if inflation used to go rise, still it used to be profitable. But when you realize the interest rates have relatively gone down, inflations are high. So we realize that the value of money itself is decreasing. So in a way, the person is becoming poorer. as the value of money decreases, you can see you have lesser wealth in a way. That is why you realize that growth is increasing, but inflation is also increasing. And that is producing or creating a lot of problems with respect to, let us say, increasing the per capita income. Lower per capita income, we have already seen. Just imagine here, 2390. Now, assumably, if you want to even enter the upper middle group, it has to be close to twice the number. $4,516. It is approximately twice. So it is a long way to go. For that, we need to work on all the sectors of the economy: agriculture, boosting manufacturing, service sector are already going well, but still there are a lot of ways in which we can improve that. Next, youth unemployment and poor labor force participation. Do you realize that in spite of being close to 50% 50% women, but you realize that participation in women is very less, and because of that, what happens is the women contribution to the GDP is merely 18%. Women contribute merely 18% to the GDP. Now, had supposingly even if they were, let us say, working one or the other way, let us say startup or their own work, entrepreneurship, possibly that will help them also to, let us say, have money in the pocket. Again, the issue, infrastructural bottlenecks. We have poor logistics, energy and digital infrastructure issues. That again creates a lot of problem. Next, financial sector issues. We realize non-performing assets are rising. Small enterprises and medium enterprises are difficulty to access or gain finance. We realize a lot of constraints in the MSME sector. We realize that 42% of the export is from the MSME sector. We realize that close to 11 crore people are employed in the MSME sector, and we realize that various constraints with respect to policy making and all happens, and we do not get the access, and when they start shutting, it badly dents your industrial sector. That is why proper nurturing that is lacking in the MSME sector is what is very important. Poor in R&D sector. We are one of those countries which have a very less percentage of the contribution of GDP to the R&D sector. And that is why we realize that a lot of technological developments and discoveries that should take place, which are taking place in other countries, is not happening in India. Governance issues like red tapeism and all, again, stigmatize the growth, development aspects. As we move ahead, we realize World Bank gave, after having pointed out all these things, World Bank gave a 3I strategy. Now, please understand, 3I strategy. Depending on the stage of development, countries need to adopt sequenced and progressively more sophisticated mix of policies. So they have said the countries belonging to, let us say, the lower income countries, lower middle, upper middle brackets, they need to adopt certain sets of mechanisms through which they can aim towards going or reaching the higher income levels. So what are those mixes? For the lower income countries, they said 1I approach. 1I means solely on the policies designed to increase investment. That means for the countries which are in lower income, based on the studies done by World Bank, they said focus should be on investment by the government and the private investment. That will basically help the initial push that is required for them with respect to more liquidity coming, more sequestration, or let us say spread of, let us say, the developmental aspect will take place. That will basically help the lower income to go to at least the middle income level. So they have focused to prioritize. Please remember, it doesn't mean that you forget other things. It means priority needs to be given on increasing the investment in those countries, government as well as private. Lower middle income countries, which let us say deals with India itself. Over here, the focus is must shift gears to the mix of 2I approach. Now, what is 2I? 2I is investment plus infusion. Infusion is of new technologies. Technologies, let us say, state-of-art technologies, let us say that is in the higher income level groups, or more infusion of newer research and development and technologies based on that. Because investment is required, no doubt. Investment, again by the government as well as the private sector, infusion has to be there. But technological upgradations is going to help you to basically improve why you are stuck in that particular segment of the lower middle income group. You realize that yesterday when we were talking about the textile sector issues, we realized that majority of the sectors are in the small units which have outdated technology of, let us say, the machines that are there. Every factory in India has an average of 100 machines. On the other hand, Bangladesh has 500 machines in every factory. And in Bangladesh, they still adopted a better technology, and that is why the export of the garments and apparels increased tremendously, even defeated India in that perspective. This is the reason because technology upgradation was taking place there, not in India. That is why the textile sector, let us say, when the finished products and apparel sector we lag behind. This is the reason what they're saying, that whatever sectors you have, you need to upgrade the technology and the latest trends that is there. Only then you can basically push from the current status. Otherwise, it will not help. Second, newer investments that have to take place, that will go on, and that is important. Next, upper middle income countries, they basically have switched to 3I approach. Now they said, yes, the concept of investment, the concept of, let us say, infusion of technology has to be there. But along with it, innovation is what is something they are focusing on. Please understand. When we talk about over here, we realize that infusion of technology and investment is being focused. Over here also, but more priority to innovation. Because higher income countries are those countries which have always have had the concept of newer researches, development, R&D sector, very important part of their economy and their science and technology sector, which basically boosts their economy overall because it creates an environment of export-oriented countries. That is why they say if you want to push the upper middle countries to the higher income bracket, and this push has to be given. At the level of India also, please realize when we talk about India, we realize that, okay, this is a fine, this is being done in a way, but we need to address all these issues along. India is a diverse country and it has a lot of problems also. So we realize that we should go with investment and infusion of technology. Yes, we also need to focus on these startups which are also coming up with good, let us say, innovation technologies, and infusion and adoption of those technologies should also be done. Along with it, curbing the inequalities, balancing the inflation and growth, youth unemployment issues, participation of women increasing, curbing those issues like logistics, corruption, and these things can basically be worked out. Banking reforms are again required. We realize that rising NPA is a major form of concern. We realize that after every few years, we realize that the new scheme comes up, it basically aims at restructuring the non-performing assets in a way or two. But they basically realize the banks tend to lose that money. We need to come up with a proper mechanism so that the government or India as a whole does not suffer because of those. So these are the mix of things we need to do along with the 2I approach that is being suggested by the World Bank. Okay, let's move ahead. Second is India-ASEAN nations to look at linking payment systems. Obviously, they want to, in a way, have the concept of UPI. That is, again, something that we all have seen as a digital revolution. But overall, we realize that an outcome has been there, 21st ASEAN India Summit. So what is the outcome? Please understand, this becomes important. Why? Because next year preliminary examination and mains examination, this question can be very well asked. ASEAN we have done the previous day. What is ASEAN? ASEAN countries, their principles, their objectives and aims, where was it found, the date, all these things have been done. Adding on to that is what is the outcome? The leaders agreed to create a new ASEAN-India Plan of Action 2026-2030 to realize the full potential of ASEAN-India partnership. So they're going to have a plan of action where they're going to do a lot of things in order to reap the best of the benefits between the ASEAN group and India. Now, they adopted a joint statement on strategic ASEAN-India comprehensive strategic partnership for peace, stability and prosperity. So that means this statement has been adopted so that there is regional peace and prosperity in the Indian Ocean region along with the Indo-Pacific region also that they have emphasized. Next is adopted the ASEAN-India joint statement of advancing digital transformation. That means they have adopted this digital transformation joint statement in a way that technology upgradation needs to be done, interlinkages need to be increased, best practices need to be shared. Along with it, let us say the ASEAN countries have been pushing for, let us say, having the UPI concept that we have in India to be in their countries also, because that will be aiming at increasing the financial inclusion, along with it creating a set of formal economy, right? Next is In keeping with the chair's theme, enhancing connectivity and reliance, which was a theme, Prime Minister Modi has given 10-point plan. Now, this becomes very important for the examination, prelims as well as mains. See, one more thing. First point is celebrating the year 2025 as ASEAN India Year of Tourism. That means next year, this topic becomes important. India-ASEAN for prelims and mains. Clear? That is how the examiners basically pick up the questions. To celebrate a decade of Act East policy, right? Next is to organize the ASEAN India Women Scientist Conclave under the ASEAN India Science and Technology Development Fund. So that means this is basically aiming at boosting the or recognizing the contribution of the women in the field of science and technology. Next is doubling the number of scholarships at the Nalanda University, because that is a linking point for all the ASEAN countries. Review the ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement by 2025. Enhancing disaster resilience, for which India has made available a corpus of $5 million for the ASEAN countries. Along with it, initiate a new health minister's track for building a health resilience. Initiate a regular membership of ASEAN-India Cyber Policy Dialogue. That means cyber security issues need to be addressed. Again, a joint collaboration for that. Working on greenhouse hydrogen. Again, a positive words towards the renewable energy. Invited ASEAN leaders to join the Plant a Tree for Mother campaign towards building climate resilience. So these are the 10 points that have been stated by the Honorable Prime Minister at the ASEAN-India Summit outcome. You should be well aware of that, because these can be asked with respect to your prelims and mains examination. As we move ahead, there is something known as a horseshoe crab. Now, please understand this article was there, so we need to have brief idea, because it can be asked directly, indirectly in your prelims or your mains. Now, what is a horseshoe crab? Please understand, these are marine and brackish water anthropoids. They are the oldest living creatures, one of the oldest living creatures, I would say. One of the oldest living creatures, also called living fossils, because some species have been there since ages, close to, let us say, 445 million years ago, according to reports. So they have survived till now. It doesn't mean that a particular horseshoe crab is 455 million years. It means that this species has been there since such a long time. That is why they are known as living fossils. Now, let's move ahead. There are 4 existing species across the world. Now, this is very important. 4 species existing across the world, but out of these, only 2 are present in India. 2 species are present. You do not need to remember the scientific name, but briefly I've written it. Tachypleus gigas, this one species is found in Odisha and West Bengal. And then is Carinocropus rodontica, and that is basically in Sundarban mangroves of West Bengal. When we move to the other species, we realize there is American horseshoe crab, which is actually present in the east coast of US and the Gulf of Mexico. And there is one more, that is tri-spine horseshoe crab, which is in the Indo-Pacific region. So when we talk about India, we realize that there are only 2 species that are found, but overall there are 4 species. Now this can be asked as a statement in your examination preliminary, that all the species of horseshoe crab are found in India in one way. Or second, it can be India has 3 species of horseshoe crabs in India, or 4 species. Now that is going to create a problem for you if you haven't studied it. It is because it is very important. It's been news twice or thrice. That is why it becomes relevant. Status under the Wildlife Protection Act, it has been under the Schedule 2. Now it has why it is, again, one of the reasons for threat is the medicinal use. Please remember, the crab's bright blue blood is used to test the vaccine. So this is one of the reasons, its practical application, and one of the reasons why it is being threatened also. See, that is the number 1 reason, along with the other reasons why, what is a threat to these species. Destructive fishing practices, sometimes they get caught in the nets. Please remember, these are those crabs which are basically not eaten, right? So these are useless for the fishermen. But again, when they get trapped in the nets, so many of them even die because of that. So those creates a lot of issue. illegal harvesting for biomedical testing. Again, this is relating to the biomedical testing. Again, one of the major reasons for their death. Habitat degradation, increasing water pollution, and shoreline alteration. Sometimes alteration of the shoreline also disturbs the natural habitat and then leads to creation of, let us say, destruction of the eggs that have been laid in the seashore, and that basically destroys their progeny and automatically decreases their number. So this is basically what was the horseshoe crab. Now please understand a very important topic for the editorial discussion. Please remember the grueling course of litigation in India. Please remember, generally when we read about the delay in the cases, we generally talk about, we have already discussed in the previous sessions also that the vacancies were there. We had done the statistics also of that the vacancies are there. Then we realized that let us say pending cases are very large over there. So we have basically done these. We have discussed the NJAC issue also, right? National Judicial Commission that we had studied, what were the dimensions related to that, why it was basically struck down, what were the judicial cases, the 4 judicial cases we had done. So we realized that that aspect is fine, but this particular editorial picks up a very different set of things. They talk about the topic related to the case management and scheduling. This is something related to the internal aspects of judiciary and primarily focusing on the district judiciary. Please remember, if your district judicial system is very weak, automatically it will lead to more number of cases piling and more grievance redressal not being adhered to or not being met, and automatically more appealing of the cases will also take place. And that is where one of the major issues lie. Now we are going to see from the aspect of the scheduling and case management aspect in this particular editorial. We are not dealing with the vacancies right now or the pendencies right now. Obviously, this increases the pendency, but we have discussed that. But let us discuss what this editorial primarily talks about. Now see, the Honorable President of India basically in one of those discussions that were taking place in one of the conference, pointed out the issue of court delays. And she came up with one of the words, which statements which says black coat syndrome. This is a very unique word which you should know. What is a black coat syndrome? It basically means the fear and anxiety that the people experience when they interact with the legal system. You realize that the moment you see those black coats or people with black coats in the court, you're already tensed and anxious. What is going to happen? The complex process of lawyers being there, going to them, telling your cases. Then you will get the dates and the judicial system. You know, realize that you are given, let us say, date after 6 months. A lot of delay and tension increases because of that. So after just merely seeing a lawyer in the court. That is known as a black coat syndrome, as said by the Honorable President. Now, she's basically pointing out a behavioral aspect. Why is she saying? She's basically saying this because our judicial system, if we talk about at the district level in particular, because we are focusing on district level over here, we realize that it is an antiquated mechanism. Still, court infrastructure is old, primitive practices in a way are being practiced. When we go there, we realize that a lot of hindrances with respect to getting justice is observed by the people. And once you are caught in that cycle of date and judges and lawyer, you're exhausted of your money that is in your pocket. Along with it, the justice is not met. That might take decades and decades, and still you will be cribbing for justice. That is what is the anxiety, or the knowledge of this thing happening increases an anxiety among the people, which is known as the black coat syndrome. Now, please remember, along with it, the major thing that the writers over here have mentioned is among the other crises which we have discussed in the previous lectures also with respect to vacancies and all, we realize that there is a problem of scheduling and case management. Scheduling which case should come first, when it should come, when it should be completed, and how the case should be held. This is basically scheduling and case management dimension, which we are dealing over here. Now, please understand, as per the directions, we know that at the district level and the High Court, we have the case flow management rules. That means how the cases have to be dealt with, how they have to be scheduled. All these are dealt with the case flow management rules, which is present in the district level as well as the High Court level. settling the processes, timelines of when the cases should be resolved and done, because that basically gives a target also to the judges that, see, it is not that you take one case and you are taking and it is going on for years and years and all the time is given to that case. That is not possible. Also, you need to do it within a approximate timeline, and because there are multiple cases to deal with. So it basically talks about settling processes, timelines, and all these things, these case flow management rule. But the problem is that there have been inconsistency and limited application. It is just for rule book purpose. In actual, it is not being implemented. It is just as a rule book that yes, okay, the cases have to be settled, timeline is approximately there, but in reality, we realize that it is not met. And that is what creates an issue. So over here, we realize that judges, in a way, we realize that there's a common practice which you might not be knowing. Judges have to prioritize the cases, which basically disrupts the timelines. When the cases come in front of them, supposingly there is a case flow management there, this case has to be dealt, this. Again, the registry department in the court is also involved in these management case things. So when there is a schedule, but a very important case comes up and the judges have to take up that case. So what happens, that completely disrupts all the schedule of the cases that were going on. And now even the Supreme Court has criticized this trend because this basically disrupts the flow of the cases that are going on at the High Court level and also in the case of the district judiciary. Now please understand, as we move ahead, we realize that timelines versus extension is granted. This again is a very, very important issue. Over here in this particular paragraph, they stated timelines versus extension granted. You realize that when the cases come in front of the judges, we realize that very often we realize that, okay, certain timeline is there for resolution of this case, but we realize that it is not been met. Extensions are granted. Sometimes the judge is not there. Sometimes the lawyers ask for it. So automatically what that does, that again disrupts the schedule or the case flow management that was there, because extended timelines, that is why we realize now date after date that comes. Next is a very important thing that many would not be knowing, that is the performance of the district judges. Please understand, you realize that the judges are also given marks in a way for their performance. That is basically at the district level, there is a concept of units, 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 that are awarded to the individual judges based on the cases they are taking and how they are resolving it. So a lot of things, cases and types, on the basis of which they are basically given points. Now that basically tells which judge is better. So possibly in the later cases when the judge has to be elevated to the, let us say, the higher judiciary, in the cases of the Supreme, let us say in the High Court, then these units also play an important role along with the other factors. So we realize that now what happens with respect to the judges is, in order to accumulate more units, judges might focus on less important cases and tend to go on with those cases, because units are also awarded on the basis of the timeline, that is time they are taking, and in depth what and how they're resolving that. So in a way they realize that if we can extend this case, because again this is also a case, but that might be a lesser important case, but that will award more units also because it is being extended. So what goes on is that awards more units to the judges, and they tend to focus on the less important cases than more complex cases. This is also a major flaw in the marking system for the basis of the district judges. This is being observed and being put by the writers on this editorial. Now that again completely disturbs the flow or the scheduling system of the cases. As we move ahead, please remember, in this paragraph it is said that the lawyers and the adjournment. There are various movies that come up and they said date, and again a new date comes. All those movies also you have seen. So that is actually a representation of the practicality, where frequent adjournments are asked by their lawyers due to certain other, let us say, excuse might be made that we are not prepared, there are certain issues that are there, and the judges have no other option, but they say, okay, we'll adjourn it, we can take it some other day. Again, this, what does it do? Something that had to be resolved within a particular timeline then gets escalated to, let us say, few months and years and then decades also. Next, what happens is that even the lawyers, now what happens is, because when they have been given a date, lawyers have been, let us say, because they've asked for adjournment and a future date has been set, they will say, let us say, after 1 month or 2 months, we're going to meet. But in that case, what happens very often, every month or almost in every day, some important case comes up. So what happens again, the rescheduling of those cases will take place because so many other cases are piling. So what happens, the lawyers themselves are unpredictable of when that particular case which they had asked for adjournment would again be picked up. So that means even the lawyers are unaware. So leave the judges for that matter and leave the whole system of the judicial management that is taking place. As we move ahead, we realize that there are also a lot of stays that are asked. Stays on the orders. For example, the case is going on. Let us say it is a property dispute, right? Now, very often it happens that proceedings of the court are taking place between the parties. Another person might come up who said he's also a party of the case and wants a stay on the order because his interest would be hurt in case, let us say, a property is granted to somebody else. Now, stays on these orders by even by other stakeholders also tends to delay the timeline or the judgment of those cases. And that further overburdens the judicial system and the pendency of the cases. Now, what is expected or told in the reforms? That means as a solution, what should be done? They said, see, the evaluation system of the judges at the district level needs to change completely. It should be more practical, and the unit system that is being there going on from decades and decades, that should change in a more practical manner that basically increases the efficiency of the judges along with it without compromising the quality. Next is stay orders reform. That means repeatedly the stay orders are being asked, and that what does, it delays the judgment. So reforms with respect to this stay order concept should also be there. That is again being recommended by the writers over here. Next is technology. Now technology is again something very important. We realize that okay, still some form of technology and cases are being put in the computers, the details have been put, but we realize that use of artificial intelligence at the district level is important. Use of technology at the district level is important. These things are being implemented at the Supreme Court level, but at the district level, it is completely lacking. You have the artificial intelligence softwares basically tell you that certain softwares, certain cases are being delayed. What are the timelines? They should come as red mark that these need to be adhered to because a lot of timing is being done. Real-time update is what is required. So this is something that is very important. That is where technology plays a very important role over here. Next, we realize that better scheduling and transparency. Better schedule. Again, when you have the real-time updation, you will have better scheduling and the transparency system will be there because even the lawyers can have access to those dates that are there in advance. That, for example, even if there is certain shifting, the lawyers at least know when their cases are coming in a proper and transparent manner. So when they come to the courts also, they are prepared. Sometimes what happens, a case comes in front of them, let us say 1 day before they get to know that the case is there because it was being rescheduled for a very long time. And at that time, they're not prepared, supposingly. And they ask again, they ask for adjournment. What happens, that case again gets delayed by months. So that means this case flow management is one of those intricate dimensions which we generally haven't heard, but are a intricate or a most important aspect why the cases are pending at the lower level. And even if you realize that similar trend is there in the higher courts also, particularly in the high courts. So this issue needs to be resolved. A very important article. You can use this in your, with respect to judicial reforms that are being asked, or with respect to this, they can be asked in the form of scheduling or case flow management. What is case flow management and what are the issues associated with that? This again comes. So if you want, if you ask me, if a question can come here, in order to reform the judicial system, reforming the case flow management system should be a priority. examine. The question of this set can be asked to you. You can use that if you want, you can attempt it. Next comes the news and shorts. First is, this is again focused at the preliminary aspect. It can be asked for your mains also in one or the other way. First is the Malabar 2024. Please remember, the opening ceremony of Malabar 2024 under the aegis of the Eastern Naval Command was held on board by the Indian naval ship Satpura at Vishakhapatnam on 9th October 24. Now, please understand why this becomes important is, what is Malabar? Malabar is a quadrilateral naval exercises which involves India, United States, Australia, and Japan. When it was initially started in the year 1992, it was a bilateral exercise between India and US. Later on, as we realized that countries like Japan joined, we realized that country like Australia joined in 2020. So it is like what represents a quad group right now. It is being manifested through the exercises by the Malabar exercise now. Exercise focus on enhancing maritime security, interoperability, and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. So this is again a Malabar exercise. This you should be aware of. Next is SAGAR. Now SAGAR is a short form which is basically meaning security and growth for all in the region. What does it mean? SAGAR is India's foreign policy doctrine for maintaining cooperation in the Indian Ocean region. So that means there is, let us say, peace, security, and growth in this region, particularly focusing at countering any nefarious activities, particularly by countries like China and all, and spoiling the peace and security of the Indian Ocean region. So India is particular about that. So with that respect, SAGAR becomes very important. This term was first used by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2015. What are the goals? Increasing cooperation with the Indian Ocean countries, promote development, ensure maritime security, build trust, resolve issues peacefully, and follow the international rules. These are the goals of SAGAR. As we move ahead, then another thing comes is MACE, M-A-C-E. Now, what is this? India has taken a major step in the dimension of astrophysics, where inauguration of major atmospheric Cherkonov experiment observatory has been inaugurated in Hanle in Ladakh. Now, this is basically a telescope which is being inaugurated. This is a short form, this is a full form. Now, what is this? It is a telescope, is the second largest gamma ray telescope in the world and will help the scientific community to enhance understanding the fields of astrophysics, fundamental physics, particle acceleration mechanisms. Now, it is the most important thing is it has been built indigenously by Bhabha Atomic Research Center, BARC, with the support of from the Electronics Corporation of India Limited and other Indian industry partners. Now, overall, what is the purpose? Advance cosmic research, observe high energy gamma rays, adding to the understanding of the universal phenomena, supernova, black hole, and gamma ray bursts. So overall, astrophysics and the unknown phenomena that are taking place in the universal, so those things are basically will be helped by this MACE telescope. Clear? This is again you should study because it becomes important for your preliminary examination. Humsafar policy. Now this is again a very interesting one. The Union Minister of Road Transport and Highway has launched the Humsafar policy to improve infrastructure on the national highways. That means to improve infrastructure along the national highways. This policy is there. Now please understand, aim to enhance the travel experience on national highways. The nodal ministry is Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, right? But what features are there? Now please understand, sanitation facilities. That means after some time, let us say after a few kilometers and all, we need to have sanitation facilities, toilets there for the people who want to stop and for the, let us say, who want to refresh or want to go use the washrooms. Those facilities need to be there. Baby care rooms, because you'll be knowing that in the national highways, people are often traveling with their babies. So let us say during the time of breastfeeding, or let us say the necessity for medical aspects with respect to a child comes. So baby care rooms should also be there. Next is accessibility. That means they should be placed. These centers should be placed in such a way that they come after every some time, so that it is not that after 100 kilometers you will get any place where one can, let us say, rest, or let us say sanitation facilities going to be there. There has to be regular intervals which are manageable by the people who are traveling across the national highways. EV charging stations, because we are aiming at increasing the electric vehicle numbers. Also, we are focusing on, let us say, shift towards the hybrid and electric vehicles. So important is that on a repeated basis, wherever the restrooms are there, wherever we have stations of all these toiletries facilities there, or let us say baby care units, we need to remember that charging stations should be built. That would be a basic boost towards people moving and adopting the electric vehicles. Parking facilities, more fuel stations should be there, restaurants and food courts, and dormitories for the drivers, particularly those who are traveling for thousands and thousands of kilometers. Essential basic fundamental features and facilities should be there for them also. So these are the features of the Humsafar policy. Next is National Maritime Heritage Complex. Please remember the Union Cabinet has recently approved the development of National Maritime Heritage Complex, Lothal in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. What about the project? Please understand. This basically leads to the development of a National Maritime Heritage Complex at Lothal to showcase the India's 4,500-year-old maritime heritage, making the world's largest maritime complex. Now, this becomes very important for your prelims. Mark my word. You can be asked questions on Lothal. You can be asked in the mains India's maritime relationships during the ancient times. Remember that. So, this itself is something very important. A nodal authority, please remember, it has got nothing to do with Ministry of Culture. It has to do with Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. This is important. Otherwise, you will make a mistake. In the UPSC paper, they're going to tell you National Maritime Heritage Complex related to, let us say, Lothal and let us say showing India's culture of 4,500-year-old maritime relation. Next would be, it comes under Ministry of Culture. No, it is under Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. Key features. Phase 1A, currently under implementation with over 60% progress, expected completion in 2025. Another phase after this would be, involves construction of Lighthouse Museum, expected to be the world's tallest. Then again in phase 2 would be coastal state pavilions to be developed in respective coastal states and the union territories. So it is basically trying to revive what great maritime relations were there during the time of the Harappan Valley civilization and what dimensions were involved there. So that is something important here. So these are the questions. Please have a look. See the question, attempt it. See the question, attempt it. See the question, pause the screen, attempt it. Pause the screen, attempt it. Pause the screen, attempt it. These are your answers. So this was the analysis from 11th of October 2024. Hope you enjoyed it. It is becoming as comprehensive as it is required by the civil services. I told you earlier also we'll be putting the news in shorts, the questions of the mains also I'm giving from the editorial, one question, and along with it, the MCQs. So we are trying to make it as holistic without compromising the quality and without making the video longer also. So this is all a holistic preparation that is required from your end for the civil services examination as a whole. God bless you. Take care and Jai Hind.